wish that most people have. The lucky don't wish. A home is a privilege, a glee and a grin. So many are granted with homes, but some people are not. For the people who have and do not wish, be grateful for what we have. Next time you go home and look around, embrace the surroundings, the aroma, the features.
Home is the feeling of safety and joy, of sadness and despair, of belonging and love. Home can be anywhere. Over here, over there, way back there, up the road, down the road.
Home means a lot to me, to everyone I think. Home always has a welcoming and comfy ambiance, whether it's the actual place or the people and things inside it. Home can be a feeling, smell, taste, person, object, or memory. To me, home is my home, but I think it would feel a lot less welcoming if the things that made it home weren't there.
Home is yellow, the color of happiness. Home sounds like the people you love laughing. Home tastes like gooey chocolate. Home smells like peppermint and vanilla.
I smell a happy dog, a warm oven full of cookies, and if I'm all cozy on the couch, I'm doing just fine. With fresh cut flowers, soft music in the background, and golden hour light streaming in through the windows, I feel accepted, comfortable, and warm. To me, home is where I always want to be.
Home has family and love where there are brothers and sisters, pets and toys.
Some good days, some hard days. Home is like having a giant blanket over you, cozy and comforting. Home is my room, filled to the brim with sports equipment. Home is the other rooms in my house, once filled with all my siblings. But all that my home has been through, my home is perfect.
Home is a place where I can be as loud or as quiet as I want.
Home is a place where I see my fat black cat.
At home, I can let my emotions out. All mistakes are okay at home. One look at the place, and you know things will be okay. A place where you can do without fear of judgment. But most importantly, a home is where your heart wants to be. For home is where the heart is. Home is where I want to be. Home can be anywhere that makes me feel comfy and smells like cookies. Some good days, some boring, some sad. But as long as I'm home, deep down inside, I'm having a great day.
Home feels like sipping hot cocoa after a snow day. It feels like a warm hug. Even after bad days, it's always there waiting for you. It doesn't leave you or forget you. You need it and it needs you.
Vivid warm light, the warm crisp air, and the colors of fall as it nears, and more. The soft couch, the buttery movie popcorn. As the night waves goodbye, we say our prayers and get ready to do it all over again. What comes tomorrow is yet to come.
If Cape Codders, if Islanders aren't invested in the future of this place, I don't know what future this place is going to have.
I mean, the housing issue on the Cape goes back decades. It's an issue of affordability. With over 400 miles of coastline, all that coastal property, land values are higher than the state average, and with a seasonal economy, wages are lower than state average.
About 50% of our workforce is driving over the bridge. That has serious implications on our economy, on economic development, on job growth, on business growth.
Demand has outpaced supply, and we're going to need about anywhere between 11,000 and 21,000 units of housing by the year 2035 to meet that demand. We know that we have a housing crisis.
We are losing 1,000 households a year who make under $100,000.
And you know what? A lot of those people we've invested a lot in. They've gone to K-12, they've gone to our colleges. We've invested a lot in them, and then just when they're ready to give back and contribute to our economy and use all of that great education and skills, they're off to someplace else.
They can't find a job that's year-round that will pay them enough money to pay the rent. A lot of landlords want to have someone who's working year-round. They don't want to have somebody that's just a seasonal employee. Whether or not you work at a place where you make really good tips, or you get paid good money, or you're a fisherman who can fish year-round and make a good salary. They want somebody who really is going to have a 12-month income.
It's something that we're seeing on all levels. A lot of people think that it is a crisis that's specifically targeting folks who tend to be lower income. And what we're seeing is that that's not the case anymore. And households who are making fairly good income and historically have been able to afford to live here are no longer able to do that because of our real estate costs.
1650 is about what you're going to find as the most reasonable rent out there, because most people now want $1,900 or $2,000 for a one-bedroom apartment and $2,500 for a two-bedroom apartment. If they don't have a job or a second person who will be living with them to help pay the rent, I'm not sure where all these people are going to go to.
Folks are becoming more educated as their friends and family members are being impacted by it. We see a lot of folks who are not aware and were not aware until their grandchildren or best friend or neighbor is unable to stay on the Cape.
Sometimes it's really heartbreaking. You know, I was at capabilities event the other day. These are the providers in our community who provide services to people with developmental disabilities. And you hear from their staff, they got staff members who are living in their car.
Been employed for the Monomoy and Howard School District full-time for 25 years. I found a house and I thought that I was going to get to move in, but the rent was $1,650 a month. And he was concerned of the fact that I wouldn't be able to sustain the rent as one single person on an instructional assistant salary. Even though that I was at the top of the scale, I have a second job, and I'm panicking because I have nowhere to live. I kept telling my family who lives in Maine, they said, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I said, I'm gonna go live in a storage unit. And it was something that I was contemplating that might have to be a possibility.
We've noticed with our homeless outreach team a large increase in the elderly homeless. Folks who have been housed for many years in their same rental, 10, 15, 30 years, and their landlord has decided to sell because the market is so hot. So we've been working with people in their 80s and 90s who are sleeping in their cars because they haven't been able to find a new rental.
I went into Salty Market, my favorite little place in Truro the other day, and my favorite person who has worked there, she's a Jamaican immigrant, she's lived in the Outer Cape for 22 years. She's leaving. So even the people who've come here to work here, she is moving to Maryland because she's like, you know what? I can never afford to own a home here. And I can afford to own a home in Towson, Maryland, you know?
What ends up happening is, after a while, people are like, you know what? Maybe Massachusetts isn't the place that I can own a home and build wealth and equity and all of that, so I'm going to think about Maryland, or I'm going to think about North Carolina, or I'm going to think about someplace else.
I went to the doctor's office the other day, and they have a little alcove there, and there was a person who was homeless hiding in their alcove because of the fact that it was sheltered so they didn't freeze.
Our kids, our grandkids aren't able to afford to stay here. You know, our police force is struggling to find new recruits, our teachers, our local businesses, and it's a snowball effect that we're seeing.
In 2022 in Barnstable, a household needed to be making $199,000 per year in order to be able to afford a median-priced home, and that number is increasing every year. For the vast majority of workers on Cape Cod, that's not a feasible number.
The only young folks who can be here are those of us whose families have a foothold here, right? We're talking about recruiting our healthcare workforce from people who basically can go get training and then come back and live in their parents' basements. I mean, that's a pretty bizarre workforce strategy.
We run a program specifically for youth under the age of 25, and it is incredibly difficult for them to find a place to rent and then be able to afford the rents because the rents are so high.
I have a number of friends whose college-age graduated children or children who are ready to go out into the workforce who are now having to live back at home again because they can't afford first month, last month, and security deposit. So if you're finding an apartment that's $2,000, in addition to your monthly rent, that's $6,000 you need to have up front before the tenant will sign the lease. If you sign the lease, the landlord's kind of locked in. So they're very particular, and I know without the help of a friend, I wouldn't have had the $5,000 that I needed to have. I think it's harder to be a fair requirement than it was like 5 years ago because your rents were probably half of what they are now. And it was easier to come up with $3,000 than it is to come up with $6,000 up front. So there are probably 5 or 6 different people that I know right now who are in that situation. I've had another friend who saw 105 houses before she could find one that would be affordable for them to do. I know in my case, I hopefully will be here in this unit until I get ready to retire in a few years. But if not, I'm going to be back out looking again trying to find a place to live. And I'm sure that even next year, apartments that were $1,600 or $1,700 are going to be $2,100 or $2,200.
Existing affordable housing programs are too restricted and do not help the people who need it.
Either it isn't allowed, or it's too complicated to build. It's too expensive to build new housing. We hear this every day.
So we have a very unique challenge on the Cape. It's a housing challenge. The housing challenge that is statewide hits us very differently. And so we need specialized and kind of particular strategies in order to deal with that.
The housing strategy we've had for the last 20 years hasn't worked. If it has, we wouldn't be here today.
I know people want to make money and they want to raise their rents, but we need to think about what's best for all of the families here on the Cape. We want to keep families here on the Cape.
We have to keep in mind that we really are focused on protecting the people, protecting our residents, protecting the people who live here, work here, and call Cape Cod home.
This is about people who need that opportunity for the basic shelter that a lot of us take for granted, right? That we need to make sure everybody has access to, and I think it's a reasonable, approach to help provide some additional resources so more people can meet those basic needs.
It's really working with the people, working with the stakeholders, working with the 15 towns that has helped us craft something that we think will be successful on the Cape.
I think the form-based code changes that we're seeing in certain towns have certainly helped. Form-based code is a way for towns to streamline the permitting and building process, making sure that the developments that are being built still meet the minimum requirements of both development, but also the look and feel of the development to make sure that it fits in with the existing infrastructure of the town.
Not surprising, policy and permitting, really looking at some of those zoning changes. Land acquisition and development, ways to streamline and make it easier for development in the right places. Funding and financing, probably the most critical piece of some of this housing development. And then again, of course, the communication and education and support component.
Accessory dwelling units can help. Basement apartments.
We encourage towns to have ADU by right so that an existing single-family homeowner can build an additional unit on their existing lot as long as it meets existing infrastructure requirements so that we can increase the housing available on Cape. Accessory dwelling units are units that are either attached to a single-family home or on the same lot as a single-family home that provides a separate entrance and dwelling for an additional household on the existing parcel that a single-family home was built on.
By creating these ADUs by right, we can incent folks to be able to create those options and then free up that housing for families who are growing, who need those bedrooms and need that outside space.
If you have extra rooms, be willing to rent rooms out. If you don't want to rent to anybody, you can contact things like schools, hospital, police departments, fire departments, because they probably have some people in there employed that need to find affordable places to rent.
One important piece is utilizing redevelopment of underutilized or blighted properties where we already have the infrastructure in place so that we can increase housing within those formerly commercial areas.
Build a tiny house on your property like they're doing over to Brewster. They're building a tiny house village. There's lots of different things that you can do.
We know that it's not just rental options. We need options for folks to purchase homes.
We encourage towns to adopt multifamily by right in areas that are suitable for development, both for environmental and residential concerns, including having wastewater infrastructure. Multifamily zoning by right is allowing developers to build multifamily properties on a single lot, such as duplexes or triplexes.
Over 82% of our housing stock on the Cape is single-family homes, so our housing strategy isn't addressing single-family homes at all. It's addressing multifamily homes, multifamily developments, and where those places are appropriate for the Cape communities. It's fostering redevelopment. It's taking a look at those areas where we can increase density, where we can look at creating more multifamily units. It's supporting our year-round population. And while we know we need to address our seasonal workforce and seasonal housing, this will only make our year-round population needs stronger. So those need to be really looked at in conjunction.
I ask that you help out as much as possible.
At the end of the day, land use and zoning and building decisions here in Massachusetts are made at the local level. making the time to organize, to show up, to tell our stories, to talk about who we're losing in this community, to make it personal. This is a noble, valiant, essential effort, essential fight. We need to build and preserve the housing for our communities to have any hope of having a year-round future, right? That's what this is about.
The smell of the air, the feel of the walls, the faded color of the carpet. This is what I remember. My handprints on the steps, my cat buried in the backyard, my brothers tackling me in the snow. This is what I remember. The sound of my dad coming home, of my mom calling me to dinner, of my cat purring in my lap. This is what I remember. When I walk out the door, off to start a brand new adventure, one I know nothing of yet. And then when I walk away, I remember how it felt deep inside me. I remember crying. I remember smiling. I remember laughing. I remember growing up in this house that quickly became a home. With the light green couch already falling apart, even the way the door sounded when someone opened it up. Do you see those pictures on the wall? Pictures that I painted. You see that dent in the wall? My brother made it. And then when I walk away, I will want to walk around again. Around in my house, in my home. In my kitchen where I made cookies with my Nana. In my bedroom where I wrote millions of stories untold. In my yard where I play games with my brothers. Even when I walk away, I know I'll always remember the way it felt to come back to home. The way it smelled to come back to home. The way it looked to come back to home. The way it sounded to come back to home. Because here in these walls, many things happen, and nothing will ever come close to the feeling of knowing you're home, to the feeling of knowing you're loved. Because it is as pure as water, as sweet as chocolate. Nothing could capture the essence of walking in a door and feeling certain, walking in a door never unsure, of walking in a door and knowing that somewhere inside there is someone who loves you. The smell of cookies will never be as sweet as it was in this home. The purr of a cat, never as comforting. The sound of laughter, never as lovely. The feeling of being loved, never as true as it was in this home.